Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Realcomm Live. I've been waiting for this one for a long, long time. What's my one word / phrase for this particular episode would be Holy Grail. For 25, 30 years of my career, we've been talking about saving energy and being more efficient and doing what's right for the planet. And I have always been a proponent of this particular topic, which is low voltage, power over Ethernet, other low voltage systems, where we can take the architecture that has been with us for hundreds of years. I forgot when Tesla and Edison went to battle, but AC, alternating current won. And for all those years, we've been dealing with a technology that has evolved. But if you just think about it, the laptop or the device you're watching on could very well, in fact, be low voltage that's converted to AC, which tells me that PC could be actually running native low voltage and saving an awful lot of energy. So my journey started a while back, 2004. So we were in Tokyo, and we were actually going Tokyo, Seoul, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Beijing, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, and we were looking at smart buildings. And we were in one building in Tokyo, Panasonic headquarters, where they had an innovation lab, and I was shown a picture, or I was shown a table lamp that was actually plugged into an RJ45, and it actually lit the light, and it was registered on the network. And since then, my journey has never been the same. I've been an absolute proponent of low voltage. We've been having conversations at the conference forever, and I am so proud, so happy, so pleased to bring this group in today that is literally going to show that this is no longer just an idea, that it's really working. So, Ian, why don't we bring everybody in? Let me do a light intro for everybody. This is also, we're breaking some ground. We've never had 8 folks on the screen. So we are definitely pushing the envelope. There we go. We've now set a record for Realcomm Live. 8, I think we're pushing the system to its limits, which we like to do. And if we fail, we don't care. Because you never advance without failing, and I'm sure all of you can realize that. So let me do a quick introduction, and then I'm going to have you go around and tell a little bit more about yourself. So we got Alonzo Carr, CTO of Carr Properties, Farouk Aslam, CEO of Sinclair Digital, Steve Cochran, VP of Integrated Systems SLI, Kim Johnson, Chief Marketing Officer for MHT Lighting, Derek Coburn, CEO of Lumencash, Tyler Andrews, CEO of POE Texas, and Jim Baldwin, CEO of Dogmatic. I got to tell you, before we get started, everybody take some screenshots, because this is, in my opinion, the group of people, the group of organizations who are going to lay the foundation for the adoption of low voltage as an alternative to AC in buildings. And in 10 years, let's come back to this photo and see where these people are, because I think they're going to be at the cusp and the forefront of pushing these technologies. So I feel honored to have you. And with that, Kim, let's start with you. Just let's go around the clock. Give a little intro of yourself. Sure. and your position as far as low voltage lighting and all low voltage everything for that matter has to do with buildings.
Thank you, Jim. I've been involved in the POE world since about 2015, so I've seen some of the evolution as well. Today, I am Chief Marketing Officer at MHT Technologies. We own the Inspector brand, which is a smart buildings platform that uses the POE backbone to bring things onto essentially the Internet of Things into one spot for you to manage and control your building. You get your data, you get your information, and that all came from this idea that we need to build buildings today that work for tomorrow as well. So we've incorporated these principles into our vision for our Inspector software. We also have a history with MHT Lighting, because we were some of the first manufacturers of POE-based and low-voltage lighting fixtures. And I moonlight as well as the president of the POE Consortium, which is a group of partners, competitors, everyone in the space who really wants to join together to promote and advocate for power over Ethernet-based technology in our buildings.
So glad to have you part of our community and helping pushing this concept forward. Steve?
Hello, yes, Steve, EVP over at SLI and the Integrated Systems Group. My background is really from the telco industry, so we were always DC based. Even our transport, fiber, and all our nodes, everything runs on DC. So moving into the built environment was a bit of a shocker. But also with SLI, we design and build buildings, very innovative. We do panelized construction in a factory, and we stack our modules and our buildings together. We're constantly innovating and changing things. I joined them in 2017 and really had to play catch up on how we were going to deploy and design. And it started really with fiber and DC power running connected devices, and then just grew from there. And again, we survive on our partners and their innovations, and we push some of them, like Jim Baldwin, to really go along, but also collaborating. So nothing's off the table for us to drive on DEC. So low hanging fruit, lighting, fans, it just doesn't matter. And so my big challenge is to weigh all the technology and then versus the cost of how we're doing it today and how this is going. Price of copper, price of labor, all bodes well for us in this environment because we're dealing with class 2 wiring that's easy to install. It doesn't cost that much, and it's easy for us to place it in the factory versus AC in the field.
And as we're going to hear a little bit, what makes you special is you're not just a technology player, but you're a real estate developer as well, meaning you understand both sides. And in fact, you're not just innovating on the low voltage side, you're innovating on the construction side where you're pre-manufacturing the building in a factory and moving it to the site. So SLI is a company to keep an eye on, and we're just proud and happy to have you part of this conversation.
Thank you.
Derek?
Hey, everyone. I'm Derek Coburn, CEO of Lumen Cache. Actually, I've been involved in Realcomm for many years because my first job out of college was managing the 50-building Merck Pharmaceutical campus. So I've been in commercial systems and building automations, energy management for a while. And then I went to residential systems. And so the domain experience has really helped to develop what you see here. The biggest challenges that I've seen is the rapid obsolescence problem. And I'm sure as many of you are property managers or building owners or the new build to rent market, you're all looking at how can we select the best technology that's not going to be gone in a few years and replaced with something we have to do a wholesale replacement. So the nature of what Lumen Cache is and uniqueness is how it adapts to essentially any protocol and any standard. And as we talk about DC systems, it was always in the beginning, there was no standards, and now there's too many standards. So, being able to essentially adapt to any standard is a key requirement for, I think, a long-term success in a new platform. And I love being next to all these other great players in the industry because, we are all achieving what the market needs to go. The direction has always been this way. And I remember so well, when I first started doing this in 2010, people looked at me like I had two heads, like, this is crazy, that's never going to happen. Same thing Jim was commenting about when he introduced this thing. It was just so bizarre to see this. But this is real. I mean, this is a commodity product almost. And I would say it is. I mean, the adoption rate is so fast. It's exponentially fast. So it just shows that once you solve the problem and you check all the boxes, this is going to definitely transform the industry.
Yeah, I remember, Derek, I don't know what year it was, but it was a while back where you came with your James Bond suitcase with your first prototype in it. And I believe I still have that. So hopefully someday it's going to be worth a lot of money when I sell it to the low voltage museum that the POE consortium is going to design, right?
Yeah.
Farouk, little background.
Yes, my name is Farouk Aslam, CEO of Sinclair Digital. I'm also a developer of mainly luxury hotels. So we started learning about PoE powered lighting back in 2016, then moved into window shades, mini bars, and small TVs. These days, I'm very passionate about the entire air conditioning system within my building to run on power over Ethernet cables. And as Steve mentioned earlier, copper prices are going up. So in one word, we are about sustainability. And a big part of sustainability is eliminating copper, both from electrical conductors and the refrigerant lines, which is a big using copper there. I was at an AHR conference this past week, Monday, and there's some cool products like PEX type of line sets to replace 500 PSI copper tubing for refrigerant. So I'm very, very optimistic that the next couple of years you'll see some amazing innovation in our projects, where not only they're PoE powered air conditioning, but there's no copper being used.
Right. And I was just blown away when you shared with me that you're working with some manufacturers to develop low voltage mini fridge units for hotel rooms. I mean, if you think about that, I mean, being able to take an RJ45 and power a mini fridge is revolutionary. So we got to also, as I think you're doing, getting the manufacturers in line with this. It's a Herculean task, but all of you seem to be up for it. Jim Baldwin, some background.
Hey, I'm Jim Baldwin. I'm CEO of Dematic, and so Dematic is about us building an intelligent power system for smart buildings, and we like to say that we're sneaking building automation in through a new, better way of doing the wiring in the first place. So I got into this. I think I'm going to say back at when I started my career at Apple in the early days, where they sort of taught us to bend technology to people instead of forcing people to bend to technology. And I worked on a technology there called Firewire, which was a contemporary of USB and really kind of the original gangsta way of combining power and data on a single cable. So that has always kind of stuck in the back of my head as I've gone through my career. And a few years ago, I got an opportunity to work on a project to use power over Ethernet to power an apartment building. And we still operate a building in Oakland, California, using that technology we use. But the learnings from that project told us that despite the fact that PoE was a huge improvement over Romex, there were still some things that we could do. And being engineers, we couldn't help ourselves. And we decided to design something that improved upon some of the challenges that we had with that project. So that's what led to what we're building at Dematic.
I mean, your background at Apple, in the level of sophistication that is required when you take something at scale, like an iPhone, or any Apple product for that matter, I got to believe that that's somewhere in the back of your head that this stuff has to be so easy, so nailed down that if we're going to really deploy it at any kind of scale, we got to get it figured out. And that's great. Bulletproof, absolutely. Tyler?
Thank you, Jim. So my background is as the CEO of PoE Texas. I came from the building owner's side. My first 15 years of my career were with ExxonMobil and iFly, building facilities for owners. And when I left iFly, I was looking for where is the technology going in the future? What is the next iteration and direction it needs to go? And that's where I found Power over Ethernet. I realized very quickly that this is going to be one of those fundamental technologies that's been converging for 20 years and is going to keep going for another 20 years. So we've been driving Power over Ethernet technology for the smart building since then, taking advantage of PoE for USB Type-C, PoE lighting on automation, high-powered PoE. And it's an exciting field. I agree with you, Jim, that this is really, it's time and even past time for this technology to become the standard.
Yeah, and leashing or changing the trajectory of AC, which I still believe will have a place in our world, for years and years to come. But when you look at all the applications that run on low voltage natively, and the ones that Farouk is playing with mini fridges, and I understand irons and laptops, these are all native low voltage. So why should we plug them into this brick and put them into this AC architecture and waste all this electricity? It's using a 100-pound hammer when we should be using a laser point. And I think you guys are the beginning of that laser. Ilan, why don't you give us some background on what you're doing at CAR as well?
So Ilan Zakar, I'm Chief Technology Officer for CAR Properties. We're an owner-operator of commercial office buildings, Metro DC, Boston and Austin, Texas. The last, I've been playing around with Power over Ethernet and low voltage for a while, but last year we received a 4,200 square foot space that no one wanted to lease. And what we ended up doing is converting it into an innovation lab and a showroom. And what you see over here is the lab itself. The lights in the middle, we're waiting for more lights to come in to light it up, but the lights on the side are low voltage PoE lighting, or we have our analytics side of it that we'll be able to see what those lights are doing. Behind it is a VR and metaverse station where we're playing around with. On the left-hand side, you see our garden, which we're playing around with. And for us, low voltage is as an education, because our we have to deal with education to our management and to our board to understand it, so they can actually approve these projects that we want to move forward with. And then we're also making use of all of our IoTs in our buildings. We're leveraging low voltage. We get converters, and we don't use power anymore. We save the cost of electricians to be able to come in and pull those wires. And then at the same time, we're working with a company that developed a soil that allows you to not water your plants for over a year. And what we're looking at doing there is maybe leveraging some vacant space and converting it into a garden for produce, and do farm to market to local restaurants, and as well as maybe even get tax breaks to go to the government and say, listen, we are actually now growing. The big thing over there would be the lighting, but if we can do low voltage lighting and then have an entire 10,000 square foot floor that is lit by low voltage with soil that doesn't have to be watered, at that point we can grow anything that you want.
Well, and I think the biggest story with you though is the level of innovation that you're allowed to do or at CAR. I mean, you are walking the walk. You are not just talking about things, but you're putting them in there. You're swinging the bat and trying to figure it out. And I think it's going to take real estate owner, operator, developers like you, who and others on this call, who are literally the ones writing the checks to build the buildings, to really embrace this kind of stuff. We got to take a brief break, but before we go, I want to start to get the questioning part of this going. So I'm going to ask you to give me a number, and that's all. So assuming that first inning was when I saw that Japanese gentleman plug an RJ45 into a table lamp in 2004, and the ninth inning is, POE, other forms of low voltage are becoming commonplace in buildings to the point where 20% of the buildings, new construction, 25% are starting to really implement that. What inning are we currently in? Kim?
I mean, if that's the ninth inning, I think we might be in the seventh inning. I think we're getting pretty close to seeing the tipping point where we're going to start seeing double-digit buildings investigating the low voltage side.
Oh, that's encouraging. Tyler?
I'm optimistic. I think it's coming. I try to keep my ear to the market. Yeah, I'm excited.
That's very cool. Tyler, what inning?
I agree with Kim. Where COVID was the seventh inning stretch, everybody's coming back to their seats, and now they're ready to get back to the game and see POE become a real thing.
Very cool. Delon?
Technology-wise, yes, maybe in the seventh inning, but education of the people that actually manage the construction and make those decisions to put it into a ground up or a TI or a building improvement, we're probably in inning 3.
Great. Steve?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Ilan on that one. And I think what's really cool though, and what we are gathering, because we all have implementations under our belt, is that now we have data. The nice thing about going POE is that we get the data. Folks like Farouk, he can compare his energy bill before and after he did the Sinclair hotel, and it's that's fuel for the fire. So that's what ultimately people are going to want to see. They're going to want to see capex improvement and opex savings. So that's what we're driving.
Derek.
Like I said, in the last 10 years, there was just under $2 million of Lumen Cash proof of concept out there. So I would have to say at this point, it's like bases loaded and about ready to bring it all home. Because there's just so many things that have broken the back of the older systems that, as Steve just said, we have the data. And there's so many of the national labs that have been doing studies, and they've kind of pointed out where all the weak points are. So at this point, we're one home run away from changing the industry.
Very cool. Farouk?
So since I am a developer and I see everything in a building beside lighting and sensors, so lighting is 20-some% of total power consumption in this country. I still think we are in very early second innings because I am privy to what's about to happen to electric motors. I'm actually witnessed a company at a conference earlier that I've been tracking for 2 years. It will blow your minds away when you see a whole stator copper winding printed on a PCB circuit, that's powered by PoE with a VFD drive built in. It's like a disk that will be half a horsepower motor. So, I mean, I'm very optimistic. The future is great, but we are still early in this game.
Right. Yeah, I kind of am agreeing with the technologies here, but changing people's minds is the biggest issue. And that's why we get a group like this together and fight together. Jim, what inning?
I was going to say 7 because the combination of the fact that I can't buy lights at Ace Hardware that aren't LED now has told me that we finally made the transition. LED lights are real. We see DC motors popping up in fixtures that are much lower power. But the other piece of it is, like, you can't find electricians anymore. We have a deficit coming in this country of 60,000 electricians in a couple of years. So we're going to have to do something to bridge the gap between these two. So whether in the 7th inning because we've gotten this far, or we're just going to be forced to go faster in the future, that's where we are today.
Anybody who knows real estate or owns real estate knows that electrical issue. So we normally take a commercial break, but because we've got such a big crew here today, we're not going to do a mid-roll, what we call. We're going to keep going because I want to get at least a couple questions in. I know some of you had sent me individual questions, but I think I want to ask one more general one, and then if we have time, we'll get to a couple of those. So the general question is, and we kind of touched about it a little bit on the last question, and we'll go the other way. We'll start with Jim and go around. What is the biggest impediment? What is holding us back the most? Is it technology? Is it code? Is it people's perception of the technology, education? Jim, couple words. What's holding us back to really let this thing fly out of the park?
Well, if you've read Jeffrey Moore's book, Crossing the Chasm, which if you haven't, there's only one thing you have to know about it, which is there's a curve in every industry that on the far left has the innovators and early adopters, and far right has the laggards. And the far left of that curve is ready today. That part of the industry is not being held back. They're ready to start pursuing this because they understand the challenges. So you can't look at the whole industry all at once. We're not going to get there. We're not going to get to the laggards in the industry. I don't want to name who they are, but they're going to come 5 to 10 years from now. Let's focus on the people like we have on this call who are willing to be at the bleeding edge.
I totally agree with that. Farouk?
I think 2 challenges. A, the building owners are not very sophisticated. Technology adoption in other industries is much faster. And I think since I deal with AHJs a lot in cities like San Francisco and New York City, I think a lot of education at these city governments need to happen. For example, battery storage, which is, I think, the most innovative thing coming up to replace diesel generators. But there's just absolutely no knowledge or no willingness to look into it more deeply. So we see a pushback. Some markets allow it and some don't. So since I'm doing projects, I'm just signed up a project in Portugal, in Porto. So I'm about to experience what is it like in European countries, how fast they adopt. So I'll be happy to share that in the next few months and all that goes.
I need to talk to you. There's another project going on in Portugal I want to talk to you about that you may be interested in taking a peek at. I couldn't agree with you more and on the education standpoint. So it's incumbent upon all of you to get at least 20 real estate owner operators to Realcomm and IBCon so we can continue this education. It's not easy to get people out of their traditional habits. We've been doing it for 25 years, but as Alon will tell you, it's not, our industry is not one that jumps at innovation at scale. It's a slow slug. So, Derek, number one challenge that if we beat, we get this thing.
So, most PoE systems, I'm going to say, are probably applied in commercial space, and certainly Realcomm is kind of the person who's helped bringing everyone together in that space. But what's interesting is that I not only wanted to address the commercial space, but also the 95% of residential building and construction that would never touch automation at all, right? I mean, that to me is the bigger space. And when it does become ubiquitous like that, then, all the commercial things can fall in line. So the challenge that I looked at was, how do you get the 95% of builders who say, basically, I don't want any of the smart home garbage, you know, in my things, I'm going to put the AC lights in and switches, and then afterwards you can change it out and do whatever you want with it. So essentially it becomes a two-step process. The builder has to accept this platform so that later on it's available so that you can have the smart products built on top of the infrastructure later. So it really becomes even more difficult to implement and get into the industry. So what we did was we focused on what are the benefits to the builder? How can we deliver a system that is as simple as the light switch? It has to be simple, reliable, fast to install. Now we can add some great things like the copper savings. We can add the fact that, you know, it doesn't require all the additional training and experience. So by focusing on the builders and specifically, that's what has just, you know, sped up the
Change the game.
adoption rate. Yeah, yeah. And then of course at that point the commercial buildings can say, oh yeah, I've got it in my house.
Yeah,
And,
I agree.
yeah.
The home market is something that we don't talk about a lot, but it is the 800-pound gorilla, no doubt.
Yeah.
Steve, we only have 4 minutes. So I got to limit you to 1 minute. Biggest challenge.
It's back to AHJ building code. You know, going beyond POE and, you know, the DC lighting that we're talking about is really, and we set ourselves up as an electrical contractor so that we can play both sides of the fence. And it needs to be more of a give and take, right? So if you're still mandated to put a 100 amp service panel in a 400 square foot apartment to drive a system that will never see 35 amps, then we need to then take our monitoring and take our DC and monitor the water consumption, monitor our energy consumption, and say, listen, we need to downsize the AC side of the fence, and then that more than pays for anything we'd want to do on the DC side on the local.
Totally agree. Very good point. Alon?
I would say the generation gap of our development and construction, you know, not actually in the technology side of it, but the willing to take a risk and bringing and jumping into something that they're not very familiar with. So they're willing, you know, there's so many other components and moving parts in a construction and in a ground up development that they don't want to necessarily give this piece, which is a huge component when you think about it on the electricity side of it. And I think that's our biggest gap today. Everything else is going to flow in once they're more receptive to it.
I've never had a group I agreed with more. Tyler?
Yeah, I agree with Elon. It's perception, and it is a level of education and perception by the industry just in general, which is why we've doubled down with MHT, Sinclair Digital, a lot of the big names in the industry to form the POE consortium. I'm the vice president of the consortium because we want to get the message out there, help educate that this is an industry standard product. It is going to perform. DC will be the solution that you need, whether it's through one company or this larger group of industry professionals that are coming through the POE consortium. So definitely perception and education.
Kim, we're going to let you wrap it up.
Sure. I think what's been brought up earlier is that there is that gap between where the technology is today and what it can do, which is really pretty impressive stuff, versus what maybe people think it can do, or you know, where the education in the market is. I think there's some fear holding back this industry, fear of the unknown, fear of, you know, is it going to be harder to do, fear of designing it wrong. So the POE consortium is designed to try to help build that out. We were only formed in December of 2022, so we're a really tiny organization. We already have 25 different companies who've committed in some way to joining this group. So, you know, I certainly encourage your audience to also look at us as a place to help shape the market and hopefully help add a unified voice to push it all forward for everybody.
Well, once we saw you, we raced to find out who you were, and it's not been, you know, you haven't even been in existence that long, and we said we want to partner and help you get this message out. Well, I will tell you again, I've said it, number one, this has been a long journey for me, so it's special to have all of you on this call. Two, Realcomm IBCon is going to play their role in getting this message out. We're going to be having the low voltage symposium at the conference, 2 to 3 hours. We're working on that program right now. All of you are the brain power behind that event. So, you know, we are going to ask you to come up with ideas to make sure we get the right messaging to the marketplace. I believe it's going to be the biggest conversation on PoE and low voltage in the built environment in 2023. So we're excited. And then the other thing is, getting the word out means all of us have to continue to push and not rest on our laurels. It is a stubborn industry, as many of you mentioned, but I do believe the point of let's not focus on the naysayers. Let's focus on the people who are doing things, have your own success, and then the rest will follow. So I want to say thank you to all of you for what you're doing. Thank you for being part of this Realcomm Live, and thank you for the efforts that we're going to all put forward to make sure we deliver the next level of message to the industry at Realcomm and IBCon in June. So thank you so much, and really looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Be well. Bye-bye. Wow. 20, who thought, everybody says in their spreadsheets, innovation takes 12 to 18 months in the adoption cycle. No. I've been on this journey, as well as many other wireless and enterprise integration. I mean, the battles that we fought over the years have been long and hard, and we're going on 20 years of my journey, and it was such a thrill to have that group of people on today, and to be able to understand that this is getting some steam, is ready for the market to really understand and go at scale, and really excited to be part of that conversation. So let's bring Howard on. And Howard, I know we went terribly over. We knew we would. Too much good stuff.
It was worth it.
Seven
What
of
a
the smartest people. Yeah.
and a topic that cannot be ignored.
Well, to me, and you and I have had this conversation a lot, all this money, not just from recent days, but probably going back 10, 15 years, going into the energy side of ESG. The energy's conversation has been around forever. How come something this big, this obvious, that could solve so many of the problems of sustainability and green, how does it go ignored for so long? That to me is the biggest question. It is literally the holy grail, and a lot of people seem to be ignoring it.
Well, yeah, I'm just honored that we're able to really focus on it at the conference this year, bring it to the forefront, get these folks together, the folks that are really out there solving the challenges, of adoption for this. I think it's groundbreaking technology that's really been making headway. Anyway, I'm going to thank.
Let me get out of your way, get to the news, and yeah.
Yeah, to have this. And thank you, Kim, Steve, Tyler, Farouk, Alan, Jim Baldwin. Special shout out to Derek for joining us. I don't know if you guys know, he came in from Asia in the middle of the night to be here with us here today. So now I have a few news stories from our weekly news briefing. It goes out every Thursday morning. If you don't see it in your inbox, just go to realcomm.com and click on the news. You can subscribe there. So today's lead story comes from Luis Ramos. He's VP of Information Technology at Woolbright Development. And he's one of our Realcomm advisors. And it's on applying AI and machine learning to commercial real estate processes. Now, we're not talking about here is simply using ChatGPT for research or creative writing. This is about applying algorithms to numerous everyday tasks, very tactical stuff in commercial real estate transactions and operations that require a lot of data and analytics. Stuff like market analysis, analyzing maintenance requirements, asset valuation, managing leases, location analysis, demographics presence, not to mention cyber or building performance optimization, energy purchase arbitrage, and more. Lewis has been incorporating AI and machine learning for the past 4 years to optimize Woolbright's shopping center portfolio. And they feel like they're just on the beginning of their journey. So if you're looking to leverage advanced analytics, learn about challenges and the lessons they've learned, check out this week's article. It's a great read. So for those of you folks who've attended Realcomm or IBCon anytime in the past 10 years, we do a smart building best practice showcase. We bring in about 30, 40 real estate execs representing some of the most iconic smart building projects from around the world, kind of in an environment where they can mix with attendees in a highly interactive poster session. So for this week's news briefing, you all met Farouk Islam on today's show. We're highlighting one of his projects. It's a game-changing project. Sinclair Digital's 100-year-old Autograph Hotel retrofit project, a true DC-powered low-voltage building. It's one of the most significant projects, I believe, in our profile portfolio. It's pushing the boundaries of low-voltage buildings and smart building networks by using digital electricity and PoE to both power as well as transport building system-level data. Hotel is literally a tech and innovation hub. It's a fully connected site. Every device has an IP address. AI is applied on the data gathered. And if you're interested in what Farouk was talking about and that next generation building infrastructure that truly leverages technology to drive efficiency and environmental sustainability, look no further than the Sinclair Autograph Hotel. Next, an abstract of a research piece by Jim McHale. He's CEO and founder of Memori, and it's on the top 20 top 20 smart building startups by total funding, and it's disclosing the highest funded startups in the smart building space in the last 2 years. So since 2015, total capital investment in smart building space has globally exceeded 31 billion, and in the last year alone reached nearly 6 billion. So Jim's team has identified 1,266 startups founded since 2012 that target management and operations of commercial buildings. And in this, what I believe is one of the best researched and informative abstracts out there, Jim enumerates those top 20 companies at the top of the food chain in terms of total funding. He includes a description of the technology, the representative total funding amounts. I'm not going to spoil the ending by enumerating them all here, but be sure to take a few minutes for this important read. Finally, Johnson Controls and digital twin provider Willow are collaborating on digital solutions for smarter, healthier, more sustainable buildings. And they're going to be digitally transforming buildings and facilities by marrying JCI's OpenBlue suite of connected solutions with the power of Willow's Willow Twin digital twin platform. And the goal is to help clients improve sustainability management and operational technology security across global portfolios. Just as a footnote, JCI and Willow have also entered into a go-to-market and licensing agreement for the collaborative use of digital twin technology patents that are currently held by JCI. So it sounds like a win-win for both JCI and Willow and for the industry. So with that, that was just a few of this week's highlights. Lots going on. Check these out and more in this week's briefing. Have a great weekend, and back to you, Jim.
Great job, Hart. And I'll tell you, we are going deep on this whole digital twin conversation. The conversation's really been around, 15 plus years, if you go all the way back to BIM, gets renamed, and there is so much misperception about what a digital twin is and on the role it plays. So we are going deep, and we promise that by June, we are going to have a conversation on digital twin and data integration and visualization and analytics that the industry is really looking for. It's time to stop just kind of brushing over some of these technologies and not understanding them. And we're going deep on digital twin, and very interested to see what Willow and JCI come up with. So
yeah, me too. I mean, it's not just about visualizing data in a 3D platform, and it's really about a data architecture
with rules and really, command and control.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of respects what we've been waiting for. It's one thing to aggregate data out of systems. It's another to be able to analyze and control based on certain circumstances. And the technology's there. It's now about education and getting this information out to the market. So,
it is, and these guys are working it out.
They really are. So thank you for a great job on the news, as always, and you have a great weekend.
You too.
All right. So before we talk about next week's episode, which I'll do very briefly, let's hear from our final sponsor, and I'll be right back. All right. Well, I want to say thank you to the guests. As I mentioned, 20 years in the making, this conversation, a personal one for me, a topic I've been very interested in, going all the way back to our trips to Asia, starting in 2004. Thank you to each and every one of you for your decision to follow this passion on low voltage inside buildings. I think it's going to have great results. Thank you to the sponsors, and finally, thank you to our team. There's the photo. Actually, I rummaged through some old photos to find this was taken in 2004, Panasonic headquarters in Tokyo. That gentleman right there lifted up the lamp, took that cable, plugged it in, powered it, and I was hooked ever since. You could read how much electricity it was using. You could see the manufacturer. You could apply for the warranty. It was a concept for appliances. And actually, right after that, I wrote an article, maybe even before that, called "Connecting Systems and Processes and Devices to the Network." And it was really this meeting in Tokyo that really spurred the conversation on. And here we are, 19 years later, and we're finally seeing some of these ideas fulfilled. So thank you for allowing us to have this conversation. So next week, we have got another phenomenal group of people. I don't know how we just keep finding all these smart people. We're going to be working with the IBCon co-chairs, the smart building side of our conversation. So we got Arv Gupta, SVP, National Operations, Cadillac Fairview, Colette Temink, Chief Strategy and Product Officer for Blue Sky, IBE, and Charles Whitley, VP Global Digital Leader, B+P for AECOM. These three folks are so smart, bring so much to the smart building conversation, not just in theory, but in practice. We're excited to have them and hear what they have in store for bringing to the conference in June. So with that, I want to say thank you to everybody. You have a great day, great weekend, and we'll see you next Friday on Realcomm Live. Be well.